Putting his personal prestige on the line, President Barack Obama dashes to Copenhagen overnight Thursday to join more than 110 other world leaders who hope they can push an interim global warming pact across the finish line.
With the UN climate conference seemingly deadlocked, America's top diplomat came forward with a last-minute offer: more cash to help poor countries cope with global warming.
The United States is prepared to work with other countries toward a goal of jointly mobilizing $100 billion a year by 2020.
But as President Barack Obama flies in for Copenhagen's climax, rich nations and developing ones are still far apart on targets for curbing greenhouse gases. Divisions reflected in the streets outside. And China's now warning it may not sign on to any specific deal. The Chinese have offered to tie their carbon output to how fast their economy grows, not to cut it overall. And they've balked at verification measures. At the White House, officials say any deal lacking verification is meaningless.
Then you have an unenforceable, non-verifiable, quote-unquote agreement.
Indeed, while still holding out hope for an accord in Copenhagen, officials here are stressing it needs to be one with teeth. One senior official tells us given the stakes involved, for the president to come home with an empty accord would be worse than no accord at all. Mark Smith, The Associated Press, the White House.
200 Mexican Marines stormed an upscale apartment complex and killed a reputed drug cartel chief in a 2-hour gun battle, one of the biggest victories yet in President Felipe Calderon's drug war.
A gun battle in the middle of the night brought down the head of a Mexican drug cartel and brought a big victory to President Felipe Calderon's drug war. 200 Mexican Navy Marines stormed an upscale apartment complex outside Mexico City. A 2-hour gun battle ensued as sailors went door to door to evacuate residents. Law enforcement killed the reputed drug cartel chief, Arturo Beltran Leyva, and 6 members of his gang. Leyva, known as the boss of bosses, was one of the 3 most wanted drug suspects in Mexico. The government had offered a $2 million reward for his capture. As law enforcement overran the complex, one cartel member apparently preferred death to capture. Investigators believe he committed suicide sometime during the shootout. 3 suspects survived the bloodshed. 2 women and 1 man are now in police custody, along with 5 assault weapons. Diane Kepley, The Associated Press.
Cincinnati Bengals receiver Chris Henry has died, one day after suffering serious injuries upon falling out of the back of a pickup truck in what authorities described as a domestic dispute with his fiancée.
Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver Chris Henry has died one day after suffering injuries from falling out of the back of a pickup truck and what authorities describe as a domestic dispute with his fiancée. The 26-year-old Henry was away from the team because he had broken his forearm last month in a game against the Baltimore Ravens. The Bengals had placed Henry on the season-ending injured reserve list. Police say the dispute began at a home about a half-mile from where he was found. Henry jumped into the bed of the truck as his fiancée was driving away from the residence. At some point when she was driving, police say Henry came out of the back of the vehicle. Henry's on-field career was marred by several off-field incidents that included 5 arrests and repeated suspensions. The 9-4 Bengals play in San Diego against the Chargers on Sunday. John Klobuchar, The Associated Press.